Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in here on Landy's Crypto Corner, where we take a look at Bitcoin on the daily and some higher term time frames, and even sometimes some lower term time frames. Now we are following up with where we left off on Monday's Macro Monday video, and Bitcoin did approach one of our key overhead areas of interest, which was a Fibonacci level based on this accumulation structure. Now, I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but I want to point out a few things here that we can see now occurring in terms of volatility levels of interest. Bitcoin has opened for its first time really since just after it began to get expansion here. We saw the initial expansion coming off of that Monday higher low structure into Tuesday. So that Tuesday close, was actually really, really important, right? We saw that during the election, Bitcoin's price was rising. We were looking for the Monday into Tuesday session for Bitcoin to set that higher low structure. And we saw, of course, post-election, Bitcoin pumped up through getting expansion to the upside through the upper second and third standard deviations of our Bollinger Band set here. And then it took a little bit of a break last Thursday, Friday into Saturday. And then, of course, began to pump again on Sunday, just prior to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange open. So CME open did get front run a little bit there. Bitcoin pumped up, and we saw that continue through Monday. A little bit of a pause on Tuesday, Wednesday candle, which is still Wednesday for me today, but that candle is now closed for Bitcoin. Just as a reminder, it now closes at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 Pacific Standard Time. And now we're in the Thursday candle, and this has opened beneath the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here. But something to note, we do have an extreme read here on the bands. We're not quite out of the expansion phase just yet in terms of the volatility heater or the volatility metric here, you could say. And we're going to have to go to some higher term timeframes to gauge some more macro volatility levels of interest. But in this case, if Bitcoin does begin to trade above the upper second standard deviation in the lower term timeframes below the daily here, which is currently at around $91,000, I would look for it to run this most recent high at right around $93,500. And you can see that the upper third standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here on the daily is now at just below $99,000. If Bitcoin is going to start trading back above the upper second, and especially above yesterday's high at 93.5, I would look for the upper third to start expanding into $100,000 territory. And, that's something that we've been talking about as a potential once Bitcoin started this expansive move on the daily. And of course, we're looking for this to, end the end of the week at some key levels or above some key levels, specifically like 81.5 and higher. And that's going to look really good for expansion on the weekly. We'll check on that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and do that local fib pull here. Just from this accumulation structure high at 73,835 here on spot, if I can actually get it there, to that low of $49,000. And you can see that the 1618 is right there at $95,000. We have the 1786 up here at 101,831. We have the 1888 at 106 and the 2 spot up there at 111. Now, I do think that these are viable targets to pay attention to, even if we see Bitcoin pull back on the daily from here as a potential front run of that 1.618. But I would look for, residual expansion to even, start to get up into these areas and for those to become extremely viable targets on any kind of a pullback or pause in price action around here. So one of the big things that you do need to note is expansion and expansive posture is going to remain on closes above 83,230 now. And things are still looking very, very, very good above the basis band. And again, the basis band on a set of Bollinger Bands is typically the 20 simple, at least out of the box. Some people customize it. I suggest you don't. But in this case, that's back at $75,000, which is above the prior all-time high over here, and looks really, really good. And another thing to note here from a volatility level of interest, the last higher low on the daily is down here at 66,800 or so. It's just under 66,800, and on a close, it is at 67,800. So about $1,000 range at the lows between the swing low and the actual close open here. Well, we see the lower first standard deviation now above that last higher low. That is incredibly bullish. Love to see that. And in fact, what I would expect, especially closing anywhere above the basis here at $75,000 and then maintaining closes above it as it continues to move up, we will see that lower first start to accelerate to the upside. We'll start to see the lower second and even the lower third eventually start to curl up as well, if it can remain above the basis band. Now, of course, if the basis band gets right up on top of price, we can see a consolidation structure. But right now, this is still full-on expansion to the upside. And that does not mean that we won't see volatility back to the downside. Just understand that volatility even back down to the upper first is still incredibly bullish, and even the basis at $75,000. So again, that upper first is at 83. It was at 230, but you can call it $83,000. It is going to oscillate during the daily price action ever so slightly. And then, of course, the basis is there at 75. Pullbacks to any of those areas, perfectly acceptable, and still puts it above its prior breakout area at 73,835 as well. And even a retest of this structure back here, 70K to 73, you could even call it 70,000 to 75 at the basis. Fair game. And would not be bearish by any stretch of the imagination. Last higher low again, all the way down at 66,800 on a swing, 67,800 on a close open. So looks really, really good. Let's check on a few metrics here. So we do have this nice uptrend. We don't really need to, there's not a lot to go off for frame of reference for horizontal support and resistance. So there's some really low-term time frame stuff. We could start getting into volume analysis as it relates to some of that lower-term time frame structure. That might be beneficial to get into, but I'd like to ease everyone into that. I know there are some extremely experienced traders that watch this, but there's a lot of inexperienced traders as well. So I do try to distill this down into the simplest terms that I possibly can for things to look out for in terms of price closures. So I'm talking about closures on the dailies here. Closures above the upper first, still great. Closures above the upper second, again, we're looking at yesterday's high and higher. And any closures below the upper first, Bitcoin's fine all the way to the basis band, $75,000 on closes would look perfectly fine. Wicks even can kind of land anywhere. Let's go ahead and take a look at volatility. We can see that it's at an extreme level right now. Our moving average is catching up with the BBWP volatility metric. This is direction neutral, but when you get expansion above the basis band to the upside, you're looking at volatility expansion to the upside, and vice versa to the downside. So although it is direction neutral, it does give us a good bias as to when to start to look for mean reversion. But as long as price is above that basis, and especially above the upper first, any residual expansion of the bands to the upside here makes those band levels fair targets to the upside on any kind of pullbacks. So do understand that. We do see that a regular stochastic momentum indicator, which had this beautiful trend line regression that it tagged here, is now at 91,800, almost $92,000. Now, Bitcoin, of course, has turned this down. Excuse me while I adjust in my chair here. But I would expect this to bullish or reset on any kind of violent pullbacks and then bounces. I do expect, from here, I would naturally expect higher low structure, although weirder things have happened. Again, that last higher low is all the way down here. So, I would be looking for a little bit of a bullish reset on this. Maybe Bitcoin kind of hangs out in the overbought zone of a regular stochastic momentum indicator. Again, this is a paid indicator because it has other things that I like to use that I don't often talk about here because I don't think they're relevant for my audience. Maybe someday I can get into it, but there's plenty of free indicators that have the momentum pivot here. This has other things like ADX and DMI built into it that I like all in one indicator instead of using separate indicators. So it's one of the reasons why I have it, but you can just search reverse stoke. Again, this is not a Stoke RSI, which measures the velocity or speed of the RSI. This is a close over close momentum indicator. This is a regular Stoke. It's running crypto optimized settings that have been agreed upon and back tested via many people that have been trading crypto for many years at a 6/3/14 255 look back. For those that are interested in that, for everybody else, don't worry about it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at RSI actually. And we can see that RSI is in some critical levels here, but there is no in-trend bearish divergence populating right now. It's very far away from the 12-period moving average here. But let's see where things could possibly go if this was to actually tag up here. I believe it already kind of did in the bull critical zone at 90,866. It did. What about the extreme user alert level up here? All right, that's at 96,636. So, we have an area right above here, the user alert level at about an 80. What do I have that set at? Let me actually look. Is it like an 88? It is. Did I not? It's an 87. It's an 87 read. So, fair game if Bitcoin continues up in terms of RSI. But remember, if it does close down a bit, it's going to update these numbers. They will get higher over time in terms of the projection. I'm curious where the simple moving average is. That's all the way at 85,500. So, it's about 4,500, a little bit more away from price right now in terms of the moving average. And of course, it's still Wednesday for me, but it is the Thursday candle. Closing above $90,000 coming into Friday is going to look really good. I will say that, especially for some of the longer term time frames. As we head into the weekly, hopefully we could see the weekly close well above some of the areas that we had previously talked about as some of the conditions or targets that we were looking for. But we do have to actually go up some levels of interest here and some time frames of interest, I should say, and see what the 2 days looking like here. We haven't checked on the 2 day in a little while, at least on a video like this. Yep. So this expansion is looking beautiful and it is ongoing. So bears, beware. Volatility has still got plenty of room on the 2 day. It is not even topped out yet. And living above the upper second standard deviation on the 2 day. This has just opened. So any closes above the upper second, it's going to imply extreme volatility expansion to the upside. Continuing on any closes above 88,630 or so, 88,640. And especially above the upper first, it preserves that expansion posture, and that's around $80,000, which is really good. We see the upper third starting to creep into the $97,000 territory. So looks very, very good. We still have Stoke pointed to the upside. We have a nice uptrend there as well. $85,000 or so is going to be the momentum pivot on the 2 day. So if we do start to see the upper second lost on the 2 day, we do need to pay attention to the momentum pivot at around $85,000. And, we have a lot of good signs here on the 2 days. While upper first is, well above the breakout area. We have the basis band well above the last 2 day higher low structure, which again is going to be that 66,800 or so. And on a close, it's going to be that 68,800 for the 2 day here. When looking at the 3 day, well, you guessed it, it's expansion to the upside. And while it is pretty hot up here at a 94 read, well, it looks really good still. This can continue for quite a bit. You can see what I'm talking about in terms of residual expansion. Just to note, even after we get volatility metrics kind of going into mean reversion territory, you see that residual expansion can occur above price here. And even while it's ongoing for like the 3-day, when we start to see a crossover on the 3-day, you still get that available upside to the upper second here. We saw this back here. We didn't see it in the most recent one, but we see that it crossed down into like cool down territory as Bitcoin just kind of crawled on the upper first here and then kept spiking the upper second right into compression after that ETF high into the correction into a monthly level at 38.5. We had a nice 3-day compression and then re-expansion to the upside. And that was basically 2 big expansive moves back to back that got us to our all-time high of 73,835, their previous all-time high. And in this case, I would say that I'd be looking for something more like this right now. We'll see how that look develops over time, though. But for the 3-day, living above the upper second and upper first is great. Obviously, we're pushing the upper third right now, which is now at 100 and no, I'm sorry, that's this. It's at $94,000, so it's coming in right around that 1618 that we just showed from this accumulation structure. And we have the upper second here at 86,200. We have the upper first here at 77,800. The basis band is above the last higher low, coming in at 69,380. Now, this looks really good. If we do start to see, 86.2 lost on the 3-day, which just opened, by the way, so it's got some time, then, I would look to wherever the upper first updates to or wherever it is right now, and that is currently at that 77,800. Anywhere below there, I'd look for, that 70 to 75 to get tagged. And we do see the basis there coming in below there at 69, essentially 400. But in this case, as long as Bitcoin is trading and closing candles above its last higher low, it looks fine. And pullbacks are welcome for those that are bullish and missed this entire move. You just got to be aware of any kind of divergence when it starts to pump back up. If that were the case, if it does crash out below that low, then we're looking at either a deviation or a potential lower high from there. But, right now it's still an expansive posture. So some of those upside targets are still well and available, 95,000, 100,000 and above. I think we were talking about 103 to 105. And then we saw that on the fib levels, there's even like 111 up there as well. 4-day expansion, you guessed it, above the upper second at $85,000 here. Looks really good. There is 2 days to go for this. So when we talk again on Friday, we'll be talking about the 2-day, and we might as well check on the 4-day. But closes above $85,000 is going to look really good. We have the upper third there, right around 94,125 or so. We have the basis. The basis is down here. It is starting to get above the last higher low here, which for the 4-day is down at 65,150. The basis is at 66,500. Looks really good. And of course, the upper first here, maintaining closes above here, is going to get that continued expansion to the upside. And that's coming in at 75,700. So looks good. 5-day, guess what? Oh, we should look at this. When looking at the 3-day expansion posture, the 4-day, we're just well into expansion right now, coming out of this long form kind of sideways accumulation and odd points in expansion here since we entered that consolidation. 5-day looks really good. Hey, guess what? Expansion to the upside. Closes above the upper second and upper third. Going to look great. Upper third is $90,000. That's going to really, really, really rocket this expansion to the upside. Upper second is at 81,170. I would like to see closes above around 81 to 81.5. We're going to take a look at the weekly in just a second here. Looks really good. Upper first is in a very good position around 72,900, just shy of 72,900, almost $73,000. the basis band is above the last higher low, which is in fact down at that 58.8. Now, we talked a lot about that 58.8 level. This, of course, came in at 58.863, front running the quarterly closing all-time high from the prior cycle. Yes, it was a $69,000 all-time high, but it was a quarterly closing all-time high of 58.8. This was where this entire move originated from. Of course, we had the lower low close with the higher low swing. We had the trend break above the $65,000 wick here. We got a higher low and then boom, up. That's what we were looking for. And, I would expect another higher low and then some more higher highs to get that continuation on the 5-day, even if it is just swing higher lows from here on out. Looks really good. Expansion has plenty of room to the upside. It's got a big distance, almost 22.5%, 23.5% or so above the moving average here for expansion metrics. Yes, a regular Stoke is way up here in the overbought zone, but guess what? It can stay up here for a long time, and I would expect it to do so this time around. Now, it could turn down on any closes below 89,700. It is currently trading above there right now. 5-day is going to close on Friday. It's going to close on Saturday. So we're going to talk about this on Friday. Thursday. Yeah. By the time we talk about it, the Saturday candle will be open. So we will talk about this on Friday because I record these after the candle close. So on Friday for me, we will be discussing essentially the 2-day, 4-day, 5-day. And then what to look for on the weekly. Might as well take a look at the weekly. Weekly looks, well, guess what? Really damn good. $80,000 is the momentum pivot down there. You can see up here that this is full on expansive posture on the weekly. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. We see that we had that close above the upper second and even the upper third in last week's candle, threatening right now. Of course, it is still midweek. Closing above that upper third would look really good, which is at 89,560 right now. I would expect that to be around 89.5 if Bitcoin does fall below it. But closing above the upper second is what I want to see. So 81,300 right now. I'd say 81 to 81.5 is where we want to see Bitcoin closing above. That would put it above the upper second and keep this aggressive, expansive posture. And, I would expect the upper third to really aggressively update coming into next week on any closes above the upper second. There is still quite a bit of time left in this weekly. There's 4 days left. A lot can happen between now and then. But right now, it does look encouraging for closures above that upper second. We'll see how this bodes for Friday's analysis. But the upper first is right around the prior all-time high here. It is coming in now at $73,000. So it's about $835 shy of the prior all-time high over here. And, that's a fair game to be tested on any back tests, although I'm not necessarily looking for back tests right from here. I would expect some continuation, but weirder things have happened. We'll see how the week closes out. The basis band is above the last weekly high or low. Again, that's the same as the 5-day, that 58,863, that big quarterly closing level from the prior cycle. So looks really good. And again, we were calling this out a lot. We had the downtrending structure here. We had the odd character change over here on the daily, especially with that $65,000 high. We had the lower low on a close, but a higher low swing. And we were just looking for $65,000 to get that trend break and then move into higher low structure. We got that. And now the trend reversal is on. And again, I'd be looking for higher lows and higher highs from here to complete this uptrend. And the higher lows can come in on swings. By the way, they don't have to be full on closing higher lows like we saw this last higher low. But looks really good. And this is just telling me continuation to the upside, especially this one here. Now, that does not rule out downside volatility in the lower term timeframes below the weekly time frame. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit more as we go forward with this actual bull run. And, we might as well reference, again, some Fibonacci levels of interest or areas of interest here. From the local consolidation, again, that 1618 is coming in at $95,000. We've got a 1786 at 101, 1888 at 106. Two spot is up there at 111. We have the 272 coming in at 124. 2414 is coming in at 130. We've got 2618 at 143. And then we start getting into some deeper levels. I would probably throw a 2786 up there. We'll see. We'll see if there's any other consolidations between now and then. But yeah, there's some deeper price targets above $100,000, and keep that $100,000 level in mind when we go back and take a look at this monthly, and we'll just pull the bear market. We know last cycle we saw no closes above the 1618, and that 1618, it was a shallow one. We saw it top out at the upper second, essentially on a swing. Here we have the 1618 up at $173,000, but guess what's just overhead? We have the 1272, and guess where the upper third is now? It is now updating to about $105,000. So, we have some confluence with the monthly upper third, and some of the dailies for the local fib pulls. So looks good. This is gotta close above the upper second, and I do want to see continuation and closing and closes above the upper third to really kick off that volatility expansion on the monthly here, as we can see back here and most recently in 2020 into 2021. That is the expectation, and anything that falls short of that will result in further consolidation of price action. So just understand that. That does mean that, yes, the bulls are running right now, but to get true volatility expansion, we need to see closes above the upper second and upper third. And just want to note this as well. We still have not seen volatility kick off. We saw it occur from December in through April, essentially. And it started to cool down April, May into June while we were going into that consolidation. But we saw this expansion really kicking off with that first closure in January. It was really December into January with these two closes right here to kick off that expansion, where we did get two closures outside of that upper third standard deviation. But, I was warning back then that any closes back below the upper second, we're going to see this go into consolidation. That's exactly what we got. Nice pullback, and then I'm looking for re-expansion. And it's starting to paint that way. It's not even full-on re-expansion or re-expansive posture to the upside just yet. We need to see closes above the upper second and then subsequently above the upper third, which is going to drastically update in terms of target to the upside. So I will talk to you again on Friday. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.